Tu peux voir, il y a plein de pots. Des petits.
Beautiful flowers, probably 6 inches across. These are obviously pink. Down here, some pretty orange ones. And right above those is another cluster of interesting flowers. This is a cluster of many flowers as opposed to one big one. New Year's Day 2016. My hostel is right where you see that X. And this morning initially we're going to be going to A, C, and B. Right now I think we are at B. I believe we are at Vat Makmo, M-A-K-M-O, the watermelon stupa. Not quite sure why it's called that. Lady taking a series of selfies. I wonder if someday they'll come to rue the photos they took when they were young. I wonder what the phobia is for doing it. This area, of course, is filled with handicraft shops. Handicrafts probably made by the innumerable native villagers that live all throughout the mountains of Laos. Of course, this is just a small market compared to the handicraft market or night market we visited last night. And this pretty temple is Wat Aham, spelled A-H-A-M. Its accompanying stupas. I tighten up my shoes and tell myself I don't need to go in another Wat or temple, and then I get to it and I somehow have to pursue my addiction, so I'll take off my socks. Even being a non-believer, as Carl would describe me, accurately I think, and neutrally, there's always an intrigue about going into someone else's religious precinct. The obligatory shot of Buddha and similars. But then I'm going to look at these walls because the paintings look somewhat fresh, and they may be, but pretty nevertheless. They're a fairly large panorama across the back wall with some kind of Buddhist characters floating in the sky, spirits of some sort, I suspect, but don't know. I'll focus just for a few moments on these panels. And then we'll look a little bit closely at a couple, just for the art. For example, this one. Remembering back to the 1400s in Venice when it's kind of signaled a shift away from simple to, I think it's called single point perspective, and ask ourselves, are we seeing true three-dimension in this picture? It seems so. And the naturalness of the ladies, art we pretty much take for granted now. How can I look at what must be at least 100 of these buildings, if not 400 or 500 of all the different kinds of these buildings and stupas and pagodas, and not be bored out of my tree? I'm always looking for something. Do we not, day after day, admire individual flowers in our own gardens? I think we do. Obligatory clock. I do not know why that is so symbolic. It's a gory and sexual painting. You cannot help but look at the atrocities man commits on his own kind and marvel at the relative innocence of animals. Here, another form of torture in hell, pouring of something hot down that person's throat, kind of like what a Roman emperor did to another leader who resisted and was conquered when he poured gold down his throat to kill him. On the panel on the right, it appears the Buddha pays some kind of homage to the gentle, intelligent elephant. And all of that counterbalanced by this tranquil, romantic scene. Dressed in guardian characters out front. Here we can see some of the construction of these buildings in its early stage. Drum tower. Here are a couple of ceremonial boats. But where some other cultures might call them war canoes, and maybe that's what these are also used for. But prettily painted. That's how they tighten up the structure with those reeds. Metal turnbuckle, and there with some rubber from an inner tube. Nothing else. These cultures are resourceful. All cultures are resourceful. If we didn't have the ease and the finances for doing it exactly the correct way and in a beautiful way, we'd be doing the same thing. I do the same thing. Now what is interesting is here they're alternated between the reeds and the metal turnbuckles. Is there some reason for that? What appears to be an intentional design. This large building under restoration of some sort is part of the Makmo complex. These very dramatic looking roof corners now weathered away. Maybe they'll be restored. It looks like they're doing something with the centerpieces up there. Of course, the Hindu and the Chinese temples are maxed out. This building may actually be Vat Visounnarath. Stretch that last note. Now we are at Vat Visounnarath, or Vat Visounnarath. On second thought, cancel that last cancellation and restore the earlier one. This is the area behind that site we just looked at, and presumably part of it. Hopefully they'll restore that so it's pretty. Now it just looks ugly. I don't know what this appendage, this black appendage is, unless it's her hair coming out of this character beneath the Buddha, beneath this lovely tree, which may be a Bodhi tree, a tree planted as symbolic of this holy site. You can almost take its size as a direct correlation to the age of the holiness of this site, or of this holy site. Man practicing on a traditional instrument. Doing this because FDI looked to me like Eddie's station, and that was my first orientation post, if you will, walking around town. Here's a beautiful little pond area that has been allowed to disintegrate into nothingness, if you will, but it's too bad because it's very pretty. What it was initially designed for, I haven't a clue, but all of these buildings you see, including this one, are pertinent to it. I can frame it down to its prettiest. Imagine a site for a restaurant or a small hotel. A young boy selling his family's Christmas ornaments, just too tired to stay awake. Wat Paphaimisaiyaram, and then they add Paphaimisaiyaram to it, compared to my when we planted notes. Inside this interesting spindly looking tree with a younger version that actually has leaves on it and a little white flower. And their flower. Whether it's that way all year long, and I don't know. This is a very pretty collection of buildings, and we'll walk back into that garden area there after we've looked at this beautiful building. Each of these buildings probably serves a different function, but I've not taken the initiative to figure out what those functions are. And it appears that we're set up for New Year's, which is of course today, so that's most appropriate. The centerpiece, amidst very eroded graphics, is composed of mirrors on painted and surrounded by painted surface. Probably looked very lovely when it was brand new. Here are the skeletal remains of a river float. Some toilets if you have the need. Just a look into the center of this block. It's interesting how I look at it as having the potential of a very peaceful area. And yet it's dedicated to refuse. Rather significant entrance. So one of the functions of this complex, which is a UNESCO site, and in part funded or sponsored by UNESCO and others, including an organization in Greece, to actually promote carving and other kinds of arts. And this may be an example of such work, or perhaps a work in progress, and a few others on these rough work benches. Certainly something necessary for the restoration of this kind of icon throughout the country, throughout Southeast Asia. And here, some large chunks of wood and tree trunks may be raw material. Nicely restored building. Dramatic. Similar to what we've seen. I'm sure a scholar could wax eternally on the variations in the artwork from one temple to another. Perhaps defining eras and styles, etc., etc. pretty flower that looks like it may come from the bean family. But a pretty flower. This rather tawdry, informative board is designed to give us some insight into the skills that are developed. It's like that last descriptive board of tawdry pictures that we saw. It seems like money gets invested, starts off great optimism, everything's shiny and new, and then like everything else, it just deteriorates. Pictures are pretty over here though. What we're looking here are residents of monks and their buildings, as well as this garden of stupas, pagodas, and little shrines. Rather simple roof corner devices as opposed to the rich facade. Here we're at number 5 on my map. I've designated it 5. We're just beyond that fence. Now a mix of what mainly looks pretty old, or at least unkempt and weathered, but an interesting wooden building. An interesting stele that sits all by itself. It doesn't appear to have anything on it. Maybe a misuse of that word because it's the only thing I've seen that looks like this anywhere. The pile of bricks and sand foreshadowing some kind of embellishment project. It's a little bit different building. We'll take a look at the differences, but wood rather than cement on the edges there, and along the side here is decorative buttresses, as well as these 2 figures finely detailed here in front. They remind me of the Chinese figures. I think there are 4 different characters that guard entranceways. You saw them at the inner city of Beijing and elsewhere. This is kind of different and interesting, and it has this large white wall that the front piece seems to be attached to. Perhaps always has been, but I would bet at one time it had colorful little vignettes of Buddha. And then there's this section over here above these side door entrances. I can't tell whether that's carved wood or whatever. It's a very old looking section with its moss covered stupa and its heavily weathered other stupas and this pagoda. But still, some come and leave their jaw sticks here, and other mementos like that candy bar wrapper. I hope that's a memento and not just trash. Look how thickly encrusted this moss is on this little shrine building. This is a pretty wooden building. This pretty little garden area whose tranquility shattered only by that jet aircraft. Another pretty nicely maintained building, again continuing that gold detailed on white walled background. Old building with its old tiles seems to hold a little shrine, but also some wooden gong type devices. They don't make much noise when I tap them with my knuckle, and maybe you need that mallet on top to get any sound at all out. It's also curious to wonder if there's a particular reason that it's sitting over that hole in the base. Does that add to the sound somehow? It's hollow on the inside, and there are these entrances, and may even be purposely cracked or split on the side there. This is an entry gate that takes us down into the lanes of this community of old homes, apparently. and perhaps some additional religious sites like the one immediately to our left. Now, it appears that this is just a continuation of the Xieng Muan site that we were in just a few moments ago, which is next door, as I pointed out before we arrived here. We'll take a look inside. Indeed it is. Come down from there and walking out of that earlier site, I'm just going to wander down through some of these neighborhood streets. It's interesting to look at the old neighborhoods and the assumption that they have been cleaned up perhaps, but not in any way at all embellished. Subtract out the motorcycles and probably the brick street surface and embellish the buildings to our left. You might get a hint of what a pretty area this would have been to live in the very old days, and probably still. Guest houses, I'm guessing. The Heritage Information Center, Department of World Heritage. Is that an organization that's international or local? Looks like traditional buildings. A very pretty place. Imagine if you liked living in Laos, in this area, and you had a reason to be here. Wouldn't it be lovely to own a property like this and have a home like this? Here, I'm sure, for demonstration purposes, are more of the weaving devices that we've seen, the looms. This one a little more sophisticated than some of the ones I saw the ladies working on at the silk farm. A little bit different size for winding up silk. Pretty flower, an interesting flower. A cactus of some sort, I think, or something like that. An old well. You can imagine having a property like this and have it look and feel completely authentic like this, but have it absolutely outfitted to first world tastes. Call it hypocrisy, but it's my dollar. Go back out into another lane and amble along it for a while. I suspect this will take us very quickly up into a tourist area. But in the meantime, and I think I may be on the opposite side of where I was when I looked down into the area that looked so disreputable. Sheet metal protecting this building, kinda. Tourism not far away. 2 butterflies, isn't it? Is it? I don't really think so. Can't be sure. Now we're on the main tourist drag that leads down to the market. All the tourists flock here, and at night it's absolutely jammed. We'll walk down here a little bit farther and hang a right, hopefully on another little alley, and get back into the neighborhood. First alley I could get to, and I think this is the alley we were on at the other end, so we'll try and stay away from this tourist area if possible. This is a pretty plant with the vines coming down like strings. It's irony that so much basic life can live within a block of so much wealth. At least the people who've traveled to Canada Institute of Technology, whatever that means. It's interesting as we look down this old wall, which is part of one of the religious structures we were just in, and you see an old entry post. Now it's probably just abandoned to these few houses. My guess is that I've come out at the Royal Palace compound, so I guess I better explore it. There's that big hill. It's part of what tells you you are in an intensive tourist area as opposed to a traveler's area. Hamburgers, spaghetti, slab of steak, pizza, and somewhere nearby is American breakfasts. Looking from right underneath the large hill, I'll go down here and probably get access. This is the Luang Prabang National Museum.
I didn't think about it. Yeah, because everyone's partying.
Gotta love Nagas. Colorful. Pilot tours just came in, so hopefully I can see all this before they get here and destroy the ambience. The grounds are very pretty. If for no other reason than they're maintained. Here come the hordes. Presumably this was once the royal palace and now is the National Museum. Royal cars and the royal toilet. Pretty hedges, don't they, with those lovely orange flowers? Can't take photographs inside. Why in the hell not? They carry statues of Buddhas and parades. I didn't know you could roast bananas, but apparently you can, or barbecue them. That's interesting. I'll try that when I get home. I don't know if this is on my list, but we'll go in and take a look at it. Vat Phonxay. Vat Phonxay. Like the monks are getting ready to restore this. Pulled off the tiles and now they're separating out the good ones, I think. Throwing away the bad. When these complexes were built, they were pretty utilitarian monastery type setups with the cement and so forth, but for the tourists they want to clean them up, which I suspect they will do. Nothing novel, of course. Character there, and some toothy dogs, and the lady with the long hair. That must be what it is. This is interesting treatment. I haven't seen that before. Down there the Mekong, and behind me is the market we just walked through, and here's an extension of it. For locals, there's lots of food to buy and to eat at home. Partying after a long day.